pretty much t-shirt weather at the moment. When the sun comes out through the clouds, it's pretty warm, and the fish I'm just watching a few cruising around actually, and they're getting up into the shallows and becoming more active now. And I'm hoping like by a couple of weeks time we'll be increasing the feed ration a little bit, because it's still getting a bit cold at night. I've not been feeding too much. I've only been feeding sort of every other day at 0.5%, still on the standard pellet, a lower protein diet, because I feel like the water temperatures haven't got warm enough where the digestive enzymes inside the fish are going to be extracting as much nutrient from the feed as you'd hope, sort of above 10 degrees water temperature, when their digestion efficiency is going to start to improve. So there's no point feeding a high spec diet if the fish can't effectively use those nutrients. So yeah, at the moment I'm just feeding 0.5%, probably twice a week, 3 times a week. Lovely day down here now, lovely and peaceful. The sun is shining, which is getting the fish up into the upper layers, and they're exploring the margins as well. So I tend to feed where the fish want to be at this time of year, try and encourage them to eat basically. So I don't want to be feeding areas where it's, you know, a bit like shaded or too sheltered where they're not really going to visit. I want to know where the fish are and then feed where they are to give them a reward for looking for food really. So that's something that I do all winter. I only feed areas where I know they're going to be, whereas when it warms up and the fish are using more of the water and moving around a lot more, it's beneficial to feed different areas, completely different areas of the lake, to encourage fish to keep moving and looking for food. And although that's what we want them doing all year round, sometimes in the winter they won't want to go into shallower areas. They might feel a little bit stressed because they're so vulnerable, because the water clarity is often much better without algal blooms through the winter. But now algal blooms are starting to sort of colour up the water a little bit more, so the fish are a little bit more confident in exploring areas now. And like I say, I've seen them in just 2 foot of water just now, and they're still cruising around. So yeah, I'm still feeding Naturpal. I've been feeding, coating the standard pellet in Naturpal for the last probably 3 or 4 weeks now. And that'll just help give the fish a little bit more energy. Then the parasite repelling properties of Naturpal will also help to clear off any parasites and help to clean up the fish ready for the spring, reduce skin irritation, and also it's using garlic extract. It's going to encourage the fish to feed, stimulate feeding and increase feed intake. So it's all the things we want at this time of year in the spring to wake up the fish, shake off that winter lethargy, and really get them into the growing season and get them to transition real strong and stress-free really. So yeah, I've been feeding the low protein standard pellet, coating it with a light coating of Naturpal. See, there's a fish spook just over there. So yeah, they're very active in the top few inches of water. And it's worth noting as well, if you're feeding a high protein, high oil diet, an extruded diet, most extruded pellets go through a vacuum coating process, which basically is what it is. The pellet goes into a vacuum vessel, which basically helps the pellet to suck in more oil than they naturally would. So that's how you get those trout pellets with excessively high fat of over sort of 15% upwards. They go through a vacuum vessel, so that draws all the air out, causes a vacuum inside the vessel, and that forces the pellet to absorb more oil. So that's how you get those extremely high fat content in some salmonid diets. But cyprinid diets are much lower oil, and coarse pellets seem to be lower oil, which is a lot more friendly, and that will also, those diets will often will actually easily take on Naturpal, so just a surface coating, and they'll be able to take on that oil and absorb that oil because they haven't been through a vacuum coating process, and they're not excessively loaded with fat already. So yeah, the standard pellet doesn't get a fat coating, so that's quite a 3% fat diet is the standard pellet. So that takes on extra oil really well. So you only have to surface dress a small amount onto those pellets, and those pellets are really going to absorb the Naturpal and the garlic properties that it has. The BP Gold still will as well. That will take on that 6% fat as standard, made up with soybean oil. If you coat that with Naturpal, that will also take on the fat as well, because that'll lift if you put the suggested rate on, that'll lift the 6% up to sort of 8, 9, 10%, depending on how much you're putting on your pellets. And overnight, if you leave it to absorb overnight, that will take on the Naturpal as well. So yeah, both our diets will take on extra oil. But yeah, that's just really sort of a bit of a brief on what I've been feeding the last few weeks, and just thought we'd check in with a little video now that the fish are starting to explore and wake up a little bit. and hopefully you're seeing the same on your fisheries. And fingers crossed, this cold air that's been lurking over the country the last few weeks, hopefully that budges out of the way, and we can get stuck into the growing season properly, and really prepping for spawning is the next thing, isn't it? So yeah, that's going to be, although it seems a long way off with some nights getting below freezing at the moment, it's not going to be long. So that's what we need to start looking forward to. And it's nearly time to cut some grass down here as well. So yeah, really exciting time of year. I love the growing season, obviously. Seeing the fish transform over the next few months and starting to see the sun more frequently is really getting me with itchy feet now. So yeah, from now on I think I'll be upping the feed rate, probably next week to be fair, because it's still quite chilly at night, and I'll probably lift the feed rate up to 1% every day then, which still isn't much, but it's enough to give the fish reward for looking for food, keeping them active, disturbing the substrate, preventing weed beds from establishing and becoming an issue over the next few months. It's good to get ahead of all those things now, and obviously with natural get ahead of parasites now. It's all important stuff at this time of year, which is really a transition period, isn't it? So yeah, we'll see how the fish respond over the next few weeks and catch up then.